Hi, I'm Dan, a DevRel engineer here at SquaredUp. On this talk, I will be running through a couple slides just presenting the issue that we all know when it comes to FinOps in your cloud environments, and running through a short demo on how SquaredUp can help with these issues in the real world. So jumping in. So if you run a cloud environment or you have anything to do with a cloud environment, or you're running a hybrid cloud environment where there's on-premise solutions along with a cloud environment in tandem, then you'll probably know the problem of your fragmented view of cost. Generally speaking, when you're running multiple cloud environments at once, or just generally any infrastructure in different places, they'll have their own costs associated with them that is often fragmented through the use of their own billing portals, which don't share cost data between each other. Oftentimes they'll have their own date formats, their own filters, and their own terminology. For example, with Azure, you might be dealing with subscriptions, where in GCP, you'd be dealing with projects. This results in that fragmented view where it makes it really hard to see the big picture due to multiple owners based on the solutions you're facing and generally different reporting solutions as well. This is especially prevalent when it comes to running hybrid infrastructure when you've got an on-premise solution along with any number of cloud solutions running your infrastructure. So generally speaking, if you're running your own on-premise, you'll have your own custom costs that you'll be dealing with, along with a different pricing model when it comes to the cloud infrastructure you're running. The result is manual error-prone reporting, where you might have to be running your own database to export all of this cost data into, and then running your own queries and reports, which can be messy and error-prone when it comes to human error, or just if a query goes wrong, you might not get the right costs that you're expecting. And generally, this is very time-consuming and, like I said, error-prone. This is an example of one of those cloud environments. This is Microsoft Azure, but the same sort of problem is prevalent pretty much throughout any cloud provider when it comes to their cost analysis tooling. It's great for looking into specific areas. So in this case, I'm looking at Azure's cost management for one of our dev sandboxes. It's great for cost forecasting, getting a breakdown as to where my cost lives in a specific scope. So I've sort of abstracted as far as I can go. So I'm looking at my entire dev sandbox, but here in SquaredUp, and along with most organizations, I would say it's common to have hundreds, sometimes even thousands of different scopes, depending on the size of the organization. And getting a complete picture that isn't just looking at your invoice at the end of the month can be a bit daunting, challenging, and time-consuming. Also, as we're in the Azure portal in this particular screenshot, it's pretty much impossible without having to, again, export the data, getting information on costs from a complete picture when you're running a hybrid environment of multiple clouds or an on-premise plus cloud solution. So this portal would not support that unless you're exporting and running your own database, basically. So how can we solve this issue of fragmented costs and spending a lot of time reporting every month and maybe getting things wrong? So we like to think SquaredUp solves this in a really easy to use and centralized way. SquaredUp will aggregate everything. So no matter where your data lives, whether it be in multiple cloud environments, you have multiple organizations and tenants of the same cloud environment, or you have an on-prem plus cloud environment, you'll be able to pull all of that data into one centralized place without the need to host your own database, without the need to write your own queries. It's all handled pretty much for you by SquaredUp on a very easy to use dashboard that you can then report on and export the dashboard. You can bridge the hybrid gaps. So again, if you're running anything on-premise along with your cloud environment, you can sort of bring it all together into the context of your infrastructure. So you can correlate costs with the actual technical data that's happening. So let's say you're running a large VM suite. You'll be able to correlate things like cost spikes with spikes in VM usage, for example. And it also means you'll be able to have one dashboard or a suite of dashboards that cover your entire cost estate. So there's no need to be switching between different portals and different tools to get a total cost of ownership. So this is a really sort of basic screenshot of a SquaredUp dashboard. We'll jump into a bit more of a full demo in a second. But as you can see, rather than being locked down to just one Azure subscription or one Azure billing profile, you're able to get things from multiple Azure tenants alongside your AWS tenants or any other cloud or on-premise solution. And we can get a nice breakdown of exactly where the money's being spent. So obviously there are benefits when it comes to bringing everything together into a centralized cost view. Generally, it's going to simplify the way you operate your FinOps estate. So means you can create multiple dashboards or single dashboards showing your total spend across all of your providers, just making it a lot simpler to deal with all this costs. You can also sort of streamline the multi-tenant aspect. So if you have multiple tenants of Azure or AWS or the same cloud, essentially it means no matter who owns it, you'll be able to get a clear understanding as to where cost is being spent, where spikes happen, and generally just get a clearer picture there. It also helps with governance. So it's quite common to use things like tagging or organizational policies to sort of assign ownership to costs in cloud environments. SquaredUp can help with that by identifying for you in real time where untagged resources are occurring, where new costs are coming from that are unowned, basically, and policies that aren't being enforced. So we can monitor that. You can show it on dashboards and generally improve your cloud governance. So obviously there are benefits to a consolidated view of your costs in general, but when it comes to SquaredUp, it especially enhances your full visibility of your costs, letting you make informed strategic decisions based on your complete picture. Increase your operational efficiency as well by just reducing time, making reporting easier when it comes to data collection and consolidation. And it can also help drive accountability. So provides teams with clear views of what they own when it comes to infrastructure, and also lets you enforce things like policies, making sure everything's tagged where it needs to be, and generally improves accountability. Okay, so I'll now do a short demo of how SquaredUp can help with specific examples of use cases when it comes to cloud cost and hybrid cloud cost. What you're looking at now here is a hybrid cloud cost dashboard that I've built to illustrate that we can pull data from different sources, this being Azure and AWS, and showcase them on a single dashboard, giving you the complete picture. At the top here, we've got a single tile on our dashboard with both Azure and AWS costs. It is filtered to a specific team, so that's why the numbers might not match what's below, which is the total cost. But as you can see, it gives a really clear picture as to where our costs sit right now in the current month or the current day for this particular team across multiple clouds. Something that's impossible in the native solutions for these tools. So for the native billing in Azure, there's pretty much no way you could get AWS cost unless you're running a database or querying a database with an export. If I scroll down, we've got two columns here, both Azure and AWS cost. One showing the trend of each service. As you can see, I can get a bit of a deeper breakdown as to what is costing me the most money in terms of the services across multiple AWS and Azure tenants. If I scroll down as well, we've got a breakdown of our service cost individually and the totals for both, and the budgets, which is a key thing when it comes to limiting how much money you're spending each month, or just generally being alerted to the amount of money you're spending each month on these cloud environments. Jumping down as well, I'm able to showcase a slightly different setup. So what we had before was if you had a hybrid environment with two clouds, so you've got AWS and Azure or something different. This is a dashboard showing costs from both VMware, so our on-premise solution, along with multiple clouds. So on the left here, we can see we've got costs from 3 different VMware hosts. We're able to sort of, if we're running this, ourselves, we're running our own data center, we know our costs when it comes to keeping the lights on. So we can put that into SquaredUp and we get a nice visualization of how much we're being costed here. In this case, we're costing it based on the CPU usage and core usage. And we can also get a view of that usage, so we can correlate it below. So we've got our usage of all these hosts along with the cost above, which is how we're powering that cost metric. On the right hand side here, on the very same dashboard, we're able to see our virtual machine cost when it comes to our cloud usage. So below we've got a combined view of our Azure VMs, showing the cost of those, along with the cloud costs in total from both AWS and Azure on a single dashboard. So it's really giving you that complete picture. And again, this is all without having to, jump into each individual portal like we would have to without SquaredUp. This just means we have one place, one dashboard to go to where we can see all of our costs. So you might be asking, how is this powered? How are we getting this data? So as you can see on the left here, we've got our list of data sources, which is powering this data for this cloud costs workspace. As you can see, we've got multiple AWS tenants, so we can have as many AWS tenants as we like, as a combined cost. And the same goes for Azure or any other data source we have. So we've got multiple Azure tenants as well that we're able to showcase cost for. And we've got VMware and GCP. So we can have all of this as a source of our data. Jumping down the list of dashboards here, we've got different folders that we can collapse or expand based on the service. It's really up to you how you structure this. I've done it by service, but you could do this by business unit or team. So jumping into the specific Azure examples, this first dashboard just shows our total monthly cost of Azure. This can be for multiple tenants if we want it to be, and we can sort of change the timeframes as well. But at the top here, you're seeing a total cost, really easy to get at a glance. But you can also see things like cost differences, the difference in cost last month versus next month, percentage differences, which kind of could trigger us to investigate further if we're seeing a large cost difference there. And we're also just seeing a general invoice history. So this would be a decent dashboard just to have as a giant overview of exactly how much money we're spending in Azure every month. And we can also see different resource groups. So resource groups can be used to sort of identify ownership. It might be that different teams might use resource groups, or applications might use resource groups in Azure to almost assign ownership. So we can see the cost of each individual one of those there. Okay, jumping down into another Azure dashboard, so we can jump to our overview dashboard. This is a little bit more simple, just showing the general month-to-date cost and previous month. So this is an example of just something a little bit more brief and easy to see, and it's not as deep as that previous dashboard I showed, but it does still show a breakdown of cost per subscription and cost by service in a different type of visualization. Now jumping into a few other features that kind of support our cost dashboards, this one being the cost variables. So this uses what we call a dashboard variable. So it's this drop down in the top where we can select a bunch of different Azure subscriptions. Right now we've got everything selected. And when I change this, it would change every single tile on the dashboard. But in this use case, I've simply just got one tile just to illustrate. So rather than having all selected, what I'll do, I'll just choose one lab, and maybe we'll choose, well, for now, I'll just choose the one lab. That will update just to show the cost from that particular subscription in Azure. I can then add another one. So I can say, let's add a few other ones. Jumping out, I can now see this tile has increased the cost because I've now got multiple subscriptions selected. What this does essentially in the Azure billing portal, it's not very possible to have lots of different individual subscriptions that you can sort of chop and change like this. Generally, you'll have to have like a subscription group that you'll have to sort of make and select as a scope. Whereas here, it's really easy just to add and remove what you want to see. Jumping down to the recommendations. So this pertains to our committed use. So this in Azure, when you're able to commit to 1 to 3 years of committed usage, they'll give you a bit of a discount when it comes to things like compute. We can surface this on our dashboards as well. So along with your current cost data, you'd be able to surface these recommendations. As you can see here, we've been recommended a few different ones, 1 to 3 year commitments, and it's actually showing totally how much we could save if we were to commit to this usage. So if we were building like an overview dashboard, we might want to include our recommendations. So at a glance, month on month, we could see, this month we've got a new recommendation, we could be saving some more money. I mentioned before as well about governance. So when it comes to FinOps, this is a really simple dashboard that kind of illustrates that, and we could include this on a bit of a larger dashboard if we wanted to. We've got essentially a gauge of our untagged resources. So the way this works, if I click on this, we've got basically if the tag value is empty, please count that in this count. I can then sort of have a look at the unshaped data, and I can see which ones, which resource groups essentially are untagged, meaning I need to find an owner for these so they, have governance and they have ownership. I can also just see the total cost of this. So it's a very small environment, this demo environment, but right now we've got $1.07 unaccounted for. It's got no owner. But obviously in the real world, this could be, hundreds, thousands of pounds or dollars. And we might want to find ownership of these different resource groups without tags. All of this is also possible along with the other plugins and cloud environments that we support. So AWS, we can do the similar thing where we can get our total month to date, our cost by service over time, and generally a view of our cost by service as well. As I've got multiple AWS tenants connected, I can also see an overview of the cost of each of these tenants. So we've got our most expensive account being the US Demo Lab, which I think is scoped using a query. And we've also got individual views of each of our 3 tenants and what we're spending on those. So it gives us in one big view, one centralized view, exactly what we're spending on AWS, even though they're on totally separate organizations and accounts. This is something, again, that's not possible in the native AWS console unless you were to create an export and run queries on that export in your own database, which is time consuming and error prone. The same goes for GCP, but I will jump to VMware as well. This is our on-prem example. It's quite a simple example, but we're able to see the cost of each individual host in VMware, because we're running our own data center in this case. If you're working with a partner, you might be able to access their costs and show them here. But we're also able to showcase the health of every virtual machine that's running on these hosts. So we get a picture as to which virtual machines are running and costing us money, essentially, via this dashboard we're seeing here. Okay, so let's say I want to get started with adding some cost data and make a cost dashboard in SquaredUp. The easiest way to do this is by simply connecting a data source and then using one of our out-the-box dashboards. So if I go to one of these data sources, I'll choose the AWS example. We have a bunch of out-of-the-box dashboards that are pre-made for you, but I will choose the account cost dashboard. This is the dashboard that's been built for me, so I can then copy this dashboard to my actual workspace. After a few seconds, you can see it's now appeared in my actual list of dashboards that I can then place in a folder. If I wanted to add to the tiles of this dashboard, it's super easy. So this goes for any dashboard that you want to create. I can add a tile by clicking the edit button and then adding a new tile, clicking data. I can then choose from the data source I want to see the cost for. In this case, I'll choose AWS. I'll choose the tenant I want to add. And if I search for cost, there will be a few cost metrics here. For now, I'll choose my account cost. And straight away, I have a list of my cost per service. I can then shape the data so I can order it, filter it, or group it, or I can increase the time frame. Once I'm happy with this, I can hit save. And now I have an account cost per service on my dashboard. Once I'm happy with the cost dashboards I've created, I want to share this with my team. So I can click the share button and I can share these dashboards with specific people, or I can just generate a read-only link for anyone to see and share with my team. So I encourage you to get started with SquaredUp and try importing your cost data from platforms, and happy dashboarding.